Social media is increasingly playing a role in mass shootings around the world and in their aftermath. Many recent attacks have been tied to conversations that are playing out in the dark corners of the internet. Here to discuss this is Dan Patterson, a senior producer for CNET. Dan, thank you so much for being with us. So, people may not be familiar with this, but can you just talk about the role that some of these online forums like 4chan and 8chan actually play in mass shootings, in the run-up to mass shootings?
Yeah, so this is a very real role, and this past week I've spoken with extremist monitors, the people who really look at the role the internet plays in radicalizing people. And unfortunately, this morning we had a great example of that, and yesterday. So these forums, particularly 8chan and 4chan, but there are others out there, allow people to have conversations in ways that are directed in a particular direction. And in 8chan, that direction, you can go there immediately and find the most anti-Semitic, we'll just say racist content. There is not euphemistic content there. It is racist content. And it appears, I don't know that we've confirmed this, but last night we saw that the alleged shooter posted not just the manifesto, but posts describing what he then later did. He was then egged on by members of 8chan. And I don't mean in a way that you might see on a mainstream social network site. These sites played a strong role in encouraging this individual to engage in very specific types of activity.
So to be clear, you're talking about the El Paso
shooting, yes.
In this case. So there was, in fact, sort of this drumbeat of persuasion happening in this online forum.
That's the way it appears, yes.
So some 8chan users have actually weighed in on the coverage. Can you talk about that, how there's an effort, it would seem, to sort of shape the response in the media?
Yeah, Elaine, it's fascinating. Watching these forums and pulling information out of these forums is like an act of layering. You find what we call meta information, right? So it's not just a conversation, but it's like an in-joke or an in-conversation. So when I say layers, I mean that there is one joke, but another joke on top of that, and another on top of that. We've all seen memes. We understand that memes are kind of these viral ideas that spread very quickly. What happens on 4chan or 8chan is intended to direct ire at a specific direction, sometimes at specific people, but you can see that there is particular calls to action, not just affirmation, but specific types of activity are encouraged in these forums.
So it's like almost a planning center, it sounds like, or a place where if someone is interested in carrying out that kind of action or violence, they can go there for ideas.
That's key. I'm glad you used that word planning, Elaine. So when we speak to law enforcement, and especially when you look at social media, often we have to work around these ideas about free speech, because you can say things that are very terrible online and in person. However, what law enforcement has been very clear about is that you cannot plan and conspire to commit a crime or murder. And it appears as though that's what is happening in these forums.
So what is law enforcement doing about this kind of activity online?
Well, you remember a moment ago where I said these are layers, and it's very self-aware. So these forums are aware that law enforcement is in there all day, every day. Journalists are in these forums all day, every day. And the forum posters, those who this is all anonymous, so it's not like your username is logged to a particular IP address. And in fact, many of these sites take the time to express, they make sure that we know that they dump those logs. So law enforcement is engaged in a back and forth cat and mouse game with people who use these forums on a regular basis.
And you know, after these kinds of horrific events, we see these trending topics across social media, people, you know, expressing condolences, but also some people supporting this kind of violence. Can you talk about the role that social media platforms actually play in amplifying some of those voices?
Amplification is the key here. So we see these kind of darker corners of the internet. In fact, we have an entire portion of the internet that we call the dark web, and we kind of know what to expect there. However, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, we have seen this type of behavior creep onto what we call the clear net, or the type of the internet that we use every day. It doesn't require special software. You don't need to do anything other than use the social web as it's been built intentionally. So this not just amplifies conversations like this, but it also allows particular conversations to stay in a silo or a filter bubble. So you can take an extreme conversation, find followers on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and other social media platforms, and still talk to your groups. When you have a particular piece of content that you want to go viral, you then use the like, share, retweet, the viral mechanics in these social platforms to push a piece of content out. So social media acts like an amplifier.
So who are these players that are in the aftermath of an event like this actually there, and what are sort of the sides here as these battles on social media for ideas plays out? Yeah,
the different actors involved are, one, Americans. We use these sites, we go to these sites, and we engage in this activity, and we see the recent shootings have been Americans, or allegedly Americans. Two, we see foreign actors, and we see cyber agents who intend to disrupt the American democratic process. Now, this is not a joke. We can look at data and understand how Russia launches trolls and bots after major attacks like this, and they use propaganda. They use divisive language intended to cause a stir that pushes trending topics further and further up the page. But we also see very sophisticated domestic actors who have agendas. So some of those may be political, some may be social. Today we are seeing anti-gun agendas floating to the top of social media. And it looks as though some of this is coordinated, but we don't have the information yet to determine where the level of coordination is. So we know that there is not just this war that's happening on these forums, but it's playing out in social media as well.
All right, Dan Patterson, so much to kind of think about in the wake of these shootings. Dan, thank you so much.